Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I am so fired up about today's episode because this is a guest that not only is she brilliant, but I already know that you all are going to love her. She's got incredible energy, and what I think is really cool about her business acumen is that this is someone who has seen all different corners of the business world, whether we're talking nonprofit, whether we're talking for-profit, big business, small business. It doesn't matter. She has such an incredibly valuable perspective and vantage point and experiences into all of these different corners of the business world, which is great for us because we get to learn from them. So let me introduce you to today's guest. Her name is Chandra Brubaker. Chandra is the founder and CEO of Brainchild Technologies, where she helps small and mid-sized businesses, including nonprofits and fast-growing startups, leverage technology and AI to scale smarter. With over 25 years of leadership experience across philanthropy, media, and financial services, Shandra has led major digital transformations, overseen complex infrastructure builds, and guided executive teams through technology change. Today, she brings that expertise to clients as a fractional CTO and AI strategist, making advanced tech feel actionable, human, and growth-focused. And if you think to yourself, well, Brian, is this going to be a very techie episode? Holy cow, you're going to be so impressed with how amazing Shandra is in combining technology with the human element of business and, of course, the strategic side of business as well. So we're going to learn a lot today. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Chandra Brubaker. All right, Chandra, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be a part of the show, Brian. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Heck yes. Honestly, Chandra, we've been so excited because you do have a very rare blend of skills that is not common in your industry. I'm sure that you know that and experience that in a lot of rooms that you're in, but we're so excited to learn from you. So I'm going to put the spotlight on you personally first. Take us beyond the bio. Who's Chandra? How did you start doing all these cool things?
Well, wow, Brian, you actually hit on a lot of different things just in the intro and kind of some of the things that I actually forgot about that I had actually done. But I'm Chandra. I grew up in Griffin, Georgia. That's about 45 minutes outside of Atlanta. So a country girl by heart. And at the age of 17, I moved to Atlanta, free and clear by myself, ready to tackle the world. But it was kind of interesting how we're coming back to this entrepreneurship, because at that time I was just doing hair to make ends meet as a 15, 16-year-old. You know, you couldn't really go out and get a job at that age, but I knew that I wanted to make money and have my own money. So I started off doing hair and then quickly moved to Atlanta. But in terms of entrepreneurship, I can kind of think back in entrepreneurship and technology. I can think back to when I was a kid and my mother won a Macintosh XL. I think that was the model back then. And when she brought it home, I took it apart. I had a Polaroid camera. I took pictures of it to make sure I could put it back together. And I remember my mom saying, "You better have this computer put back together by dinner." And so that was the start of my major curiosity. I was curious in how this device worked the way that it did. And so that gave me a nudge into the technology space. But, you know, as time and just life happens, when I moved to Atlanta, I quickly realized that entrepreneurship was something that was kind of embedded in me. So I started a ice cream company called Cool Downs Italian Ice. And basically, Cool Downs was a natural based Italian ice. I didn't know anything about Italian ice. I had met someone from Philadelphia who introduced me to it, and I just thought it was just an icy, or you could just freeze Kool-Aid or something like that. And he explained that it was so much more. And so I put my flavor to it and I started Cool Downs. And I quickly started buying these carts that I would use around the city for events and things of that nature. So that is where the entrepreneurship bug happened. But then there was a technological shift. Microsoft was starting to really produce their products, PowerPoint, a small version. I don't even think PowerPoint was there at the time, but it was Excel, and I realized that this was a change for us, and it was something that I was interested in. And so I got a job at a predictive dialing system company where they used Microsoft and they used what we call Unix as a different set of operating system. And the rest is history. I went from there to CNN, to a director of IT for Morehouse College. And then for Morehouse College, I was at a financial services and one of the oldest African American insurance companies. I was there for many, many years, where I brought in a whole new lens to the tech strategy. And I quickly moved up the ranks and went to a radio station here in Atlanta called WABE. And it's a combination of a public broadcasting and NPR. And that was a wonderful experience. And then I ventured off to another financial services company. And, just working through that, I realized that I had the grit to start my own technology company, but was still kind of afraid of letting go of the security of having a check every 15th in the end of the month. So I kept my leadership jobs. And then this year, I went out on faith and just got rid of fear and knew that I had something that these companies could use to help propel them forward. And that is where the relaunch of Brainchild Technologies came about.
Yes, I love that overview. I'm going to call this out so much, Chandra, because it's something that I so appreciate about entrepreneurs like you, is that when we talk about, obviously we're talking about what you do today with Brainchild Technologies, but it means the world to me when entrepreneurs go back to their real roots, because I think that it reveals that you're not an entrepreneur by what you do. You're an entrepreneur because it's in your bones. It's in your DNA. It's so clear to me that you've always had that entrepreneurial hustle inside of you. And it's something that I resonate with. I think so many of us, when we were kids, we just found random opportunities. For me, it was popping dents out of cars, because I played soccer and I was always putting soccer ball sized dents into my parents' car and my brother's car. And so it's finding those opportunities. And it's so funny because when people want to talk to me about this podcast, I start with being a 15-year-old, and I start with working at CVS and how that led to an SEO internship. And one thing leads to another. And Chandra, I don't think people often recognize that in their stories and in their journeys often enough, how all of these experiences have made us who we are and have made us what we are. Talk to us about that, because obviously being the CEO of such an incredible company that's serving so many other businesses, you know better than anybody else how this company today is the culmination of all those past experiences. What are some of those ways that you didn't even realize, I'm being uniquely prepared for this?
Well, it was interesting because I kind of going forward a little bit, I started Brainchild because I was the go-to person all the time, the one that the different organization called when there was chaos. And I was dubbed early on after Kerry Washington's show Scandal, and I was dubbed the Olivia Pope of tech fires, because I was always that person fixing things and translating chaos into clarity. And so over the years, I've led in finance, in media, in philanthropy, in education. And every time I found myself carrying the load and helping teams solve problems that no one else could untangle. And so just kind of going through that, thinking I'm solving problems for other organizations and I can identify where these problems are. This is something that I can actually go back to my young self and my young entrepreneur thought process and do for myself. And so, just honing back into that, and then also looking at my family dynamics. My mother was someone who was into technology at that time. My father was working with Ford. So he was a builder. He could repair things. So just out of nature, just out of my biological makeup is where I got all of this drive to be able to do these things.
Yeah, I love that. I want to go deeper there because it really stands out how much of your story you weave in that big old T word that we're here to talk about today, technology. But you can't help but talk about technology with also bringing in the human element and the business element. It's so clear to me that you have equal love for all of these different parts that you juggle in your business. Let's talk directly about it for listeners who are sitting there saying, yeah, I know 2025 is for sure the best time to be alive. We have all the coolest technology at our fingertips. Most of it is outrageously accessible. I mean, anybody can start using ChatGPT for free. And anyone with a Google account, I mean, you can get all these free Gemini trials. Like, anyone can access anything. It's now just a question of how are we going to use technology to unleash growth, to unleash deeper service of our people. Shandra, you step into that and you love that, whereas a lot of other people feel overwhelmed there. Talk to us about that attitude and really how you inject that technology for a purpose for your clients.
Well, for me, it has always been on the cusp of the transformation of technology, whether it was going from using a flip phone to a Apple phone, or whether it was going to virtualization, cloud services. Instead of you having a data center and 15 different servers, you can change that into just 2 servers that still serve the same type of data and content. And so over the years, I have watched technology transform, but it was slow. It was a slow pace. It was something that we could keep up with. But the change with AI is making the pace of technology change a lot faster and a lot harder to adapt to. So I think, and this is for everyone, not just the business owners, not just the business leaders, but personally, you have to incorporate curiosity. And if there is no curiosity in this speed and transformation of technology, you will get left behind. And it's not if you will use and adapt to AI, it's actually when. And so, when I was coming up in the ranks of technologies, there wasn't a website that you could go to learn. You basically had to get those cram session books and sit and learn, and then hope that you can get a computer from someone, or someone will allow you to test in their environment, in their dev environment or what have you. But now there's such an abundance of education around it. There's no reason not to use curiosity to help you understand and land the plane on where you are. And it's okay with being new to this. It is perfectly fine. I think us as technologists, we have to make sure that we are using terminology and the way that we talk to people to transfer this technology information into natural language and something that people can understand, even if it means explain it to someone like you're explaining it to a fifth grader. That there's value in that, and I think that's something that us as technologists will have to hone into a lot to help others adapt.
Shandra, I'm going to pick on that concept of curiosity because I'm a very curious person, which definitely helps in my role of being a podcast host. But curiosity often leads me sometimes when I'm talking to experts, and I'll use graphic designers as a great example here. With graphic designers, I have so much curiosity about how much they can help, brands, how they can help website experiences. Graphic designers are so talented in so many different ways. However, I also feel very limited by my own non-expertise there, my own inexpertise, is that I almost don't know what I don't know, so I don't even know what to ask them, and I don't know how to maximize their abilities, which is why any graphic designer that's ever worked with me knows that I don't give much direction. I'm just like, you're the expert. I trust you so much more than I trust me. Please use your genius. You, Shandra, you walk into that role, and I'm sure a lot of people feel about CTOs the way that I feel about graphic designers, of you probably see things that I could never even see, things that I don't even know are possible, possible. And so I'm super curious, of course, where that curiosity is driven from, who's driving those questions. Is it something that a business owner or business leader reaches out and they say, Shandra, I need help in XYZ, can you help us navigate that? Or is it an even more vague approach, like me working with graphic designers, where they're like, Shandra, please come in, give us your extra expertise set of eyes and try to make sense of the landscape. How do we begin to tap into that skill set?
Well, the very first thing is a lot of times companies have some sort of tech stack. And what I have witnessed is that a lot of organizations do not incorporate technology in their strategic plan. And that, number one, can set you up for failure, so that you're now reverse engineering the technology stack that you currently have in place. So I think understanding the business first is the most important thing. So, if someone calls us and say, hey, we have these issues that are going on, or we just want to better our technology, we have to sit with them to understand the strategic plan of the organization. Where do you see your organization going in the next 3 years? Where do you see your organization right now? And what are the problems? What is keeping you up at night? That is a repetitive task that could actually save you time. And this was before even AI, because there were things in place that could help an organization with their technology stack. So the first thing is to understand what the business does, what the goals are for the business, and then understanding the mission and the strategic plan so that you can align the technology with that and have a better outcome. So, the fixing problems that sometimes organizations will go into a thought process that technology is going to handle all of our problems. We're just going to bring the technologist in and they're going to solve everything. But you have to have someone in your C-suite that understands the business and where the business is going, and then couple that with the technology and strategy. And then that's how you become a partner with the organization rather than just a vendor.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And I think that's such an important point to emphasize sometimes, that we think, and I see this, I identify most, Chandra, as a marketer. I'm like a marketer at heart. And all too often people think that if I buy a marketing software, it's going to solve my marketing problems. But as you just alluded to, it's absolutely not. You have to do the marketing. You have to use the tool. Just like if I buy a shovel, that shovel's not going to do anything for me. I've got to put the work in. And I think that we tend to forget that. On the flip side of it, I would imagine that something you hear, because we hear it even in mainstream conversations, is fear surrounding technology, and especially AI. So many people who are afraid of, is AI going to replace my jobs? If we inject AI into our business, is it going to take things away from us? Is it going to lose that personal touch? There's a lot of things that people are fearful of. I even struggle to list those as an eternal optimist that I am. So, Chandra, I'm just going to throw it to you. What are some of those thoughts that you hear? And obviously you help people work through it. So I'd love to hear how you navigate that.
Well, actually, that's also a fear for myself, especially someone who have children, and I'm looking to the future on what does this bring for my children. So I think we have to start off with honesty. And the honesty is that, yes, it will change the landscape of your business, but it's not necessarily how do we offload all of this work to AI so that we can replace humans. Ethically, that's just not good. What we can look at is, especially in the philanthropic sector, in philanthropy, it's about building relationships and ethics. And we have to really look at the ethics behind it and see if we're going to bring in AI to replace these mundane tasks, then that should free up time for your staff to be able to make better relationships and to be able to get out into community. That's really what they are wanting to do. They don't want to be technologists anyway. They don't want to be in the mundane work of the back end operations. So if you can offload some of that operation so that there is more of a human connection, then I think you're winning. but we have to be honest that there are going to be a lot of changes. We're seeing it now. We're seeing it right now just from the layoffs that we've seen over the last 6 months. And we're also seeing it within cybersecurity. And so the human side is completely important, but we can't run from the facts. And the facts is that in a lot of organizations, there will be some turnover, but turnover will also bring opportunities. So as a leader, I would think that it would be best for you to look at your organization and to see how you can take those positions that's going to be freed up to move them around in your organization that needs more care and customer interaction, and you can move people around, and then it gives people an opportunity to learn more and also learn more about the business.
Yes, so well said. I love that point. It's something that I've been sharing with people behind the scenes about the show this year, is that the more that we use AI, the more we've actually been hiring more this year than ever before, because historically, I mean, it was painful to create show notes. Like, that's one example of something that was so painful that we used to do by hand in the podcasting world. And I'm not going back to when I started the show in 2016. Just a few years ago, we were still doing these things by hand. And the fact that AI takes a lot of that heavy lifting, it doesn't take a genius to create show notes and summarize an episode. So now we have human capital reaching out to incredible entrepreneurs like you, Shandra, and finding amazing entrepreneurs and inviting you onto the show. Is there something you want to add there?
Yeah, I was going to say, and I was going to go back on what you just said. You're hiring more because you still have to have a human in the loop. You know, you're not just going to take everything and just give it to an AI agent or a chatbot or what have you, and it just goes and do things. You still have to have a human in the loop. You still have to have someone to do checks and balances to make sure that the information that is going out there or any type of automation that you're putting in is correct. You don't want an automation tool to go out to the wrong client and send the wrong contract. So it's things like that that you do have to have a human in the loop. And I can see those things changing. You know, I was looking at it was some article that I was reading, and I cannot remember the person that made the statement, but I do want to pay homage to it. And basically they were saying, as AI progress, other human jobs will be created, something like a human just to spend time with people. That will become a job. And at first I was like, really? And I thought about it, because the more AI you're putting in, you may be losing that human connectivity, but that may bring on another type of job or another type of industry where we will be taking our human self and making sure that we can have interaction with other humans, just so that we don't lose that side of us as humans.
Shandra, I love that you shouted out that article. I read the same thing, and like you, I can't remember where the heck I read that, but I did think it's so brilliant, because not only is AI an emerging technology, not only are a lot of us shifting to remote work, obviously you and I as business owners, we can work from wherever it is that we want to, but so many more meetings are virtual these days, and it's really cool to see all of these different opportunities pop up, going back to the humans. And I see so many also more tactile applications taking off again. You know, we have all the iPhone apps in the world, but all of a sudden people are going back to buying notebooks, buying records, and it's things that will never be lost. They'll just change. And I really appreciate your openness and adaptability when it comes to change, is that you embrace it and you help others navigate it. So it's really cool to hear your attitude in action here. And I want to go a little bit deeper into that attitude, because I think, and I teased this at the top of today's episode, your past experiences must be so valuable in the line of work that you do. You've worked at big businesses, small businesses, for-profit, nonprofit. Not everybody has that body of experiences, and I would imagine that it helps to shape the way that you run your own business and the way that you interact with your clients. What are some of those things that you picked up along the years, and you said, even though I'm running a tech company, I want to embrace that. I want to keep that culture as I build my own company. And of course, because a lot of us are not 9-to-5ers at heart, we like to do things our own way. What are some of those things that you've said, I want to do things a little bit differently with Brainchild?
One of the most important thing for me is to build relationships with my teams and empower my teams. I will say that during my leadership times in these different industries, I've gained followers by, and when I say followers, I mean people on my team. Like if I had a team of 15, I'm probably still in contact with them now because they were empowered by me valuing their expertise and just adapting my leadership on top of that. And just understanding that you have to get into the fire with them to understand what they do, to understand their nuances. And so that helped me along the way bring people along who wanted to follow me even after I left the organization. And so, adapting to change has been something that I've seen over the course of 25 years. And those companies that just was not ready to adapt to change, it left them in a funky spot. It stunned their growth. They had to go back and re-engineer their technology or even just their SOPs. So for me, understanding again the actual business and then understanding our SOPs and bringing project management, because for a lot of startup organizations, project management is just something that is not the first thing that they're thinking of, because there's so many things they're juggling. They're trying to make payroll, they're trying to hire people, they're trying to sell their business and market their business. And I think that you have to couple that with some sort of project management methodology that's good for your business. And that is one of the things that I bring along to nonprofits is a methodology to change, and how you have those feedback loops and how you bring people along with you. It doesn't start at the top all the time. Sometimes we have to take that bottoms up approach, because listening allows you to understand that the people that's at the bottom is the people that's doing the work. They are doing the work. So they see all the nuances that you as a leader or sitting in the C-suite don't necessarily see. And so finding some way to build change into your culture is 1000% important. And you have to understand the different amount of changes. And when I say that, I mean, there are your early adopters, there are your late adopters, and you have to figure out a way to serve every last one of those adopters. And that's where change management comes. And then you can build those into your SOPs.
Oof, I love that. That's going to be a one-liner that I take away from today's episode is we have to build change into our culture. And Shandra, I will say that a lot of people probably didn't expect a technologist such as yourself to be bringing these important pieces of strategic advice and insights for us here today. But that right there, you've kind of alluded to your special intersection between people, technology, business strategy, all of these things coming together. That's your superpower. And I'm so excited to hear how you answer this last question. Just knowing that you're talented in so many of these different avenues, and it's a super broad one, so I don't know how you're going to answer it and how you're going to top all the advice that you've already given us, but I always ask, what's your best piece of advice for listeners, knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and also knowing that you are one of us, you're a fellow entrepreneur, especially a lifelong entrepreneur as well. What's that one piece of advice that you want to leave them with today?
The one piece of advice that I would like to leave is threefold. Number one, curiosity does not kill the cat. Curiosity brings on resilience, it brings on problem solving, and it brings on the ability to pivot. So curiosity will continue to propel people as a lifelong learner, because the more you're curious, the more you will learn. And then the second is fear, just trying to find the balance between risk and fear. Like, it's okay to take risk. I think it is, but there's a fear that comes with that. And until you overcome that fear, it's harder to take on risk. And then my last and final thing is always smile. I mean, no matter how many problems come to you, sometimes just building that muscle in your face can help you get through those tough times. And I can name plenty of tough times. And for me, smiling is something that helps. That way, if the team is also going through a tough time and you're bringing in that lens of yourself and that smiling, it helps propel your staff and your team to a more positive solution. So those are the three things that I think that is at the top of mind for me, and I stand on it.
Woof. I love that. Shandra, I always ask that question, and in 1,300 episodes, it's hard to hear advice for the first time ever, but you nailed it. I think that is incredibly valuable. Obviously, you're preaching to the choir here. I'm a big believer that smiling goes a long way, and listeners, if you heed all three pieces of this advice from Shandra today, you're going to be in good standing, and that's why I always say that success leaves clues, and that's why, Shandra, I'm so in admiration of all the things that you're building with Brainchild Technologies. I'm very excited for listeners to check it out because it is the culmination of so much of what you shared with us here today. Obviously, so much of what you've amassed throughout your entire professional and personal career. So for listeners who want to see all that great work in action, drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
They can go straight to the website at brainchildit.com, and they can certainly find me on LinkedIn. And just hit a shout out. I just want everybody to know that Brainchild, we're not just a vendor. We're not here to sell you software. Brainchild is an agnostic tech partner, and we are a strategic matchmaker between your business needs and the right solution. So think of us as like a tech broker. We work with you and with the vendors to design systems that actually fit your organization. It's scalable, flexible, and ready to pivot as the tech landscape evolves very quickly.
Yes, I love that. With Chandra, I feel like that speaks so much to the fact that you're actually a teammate. You say, you're not a vendor. And I really hear the way you talk about the nature of the work that you do is that you are a team member. When you're aligned with your client, is that you just find the best solution for them. And I would imagine that's a fun position to be in. So listeners, you already know the drill. We're making it as easy as possible for you to find Brainchild Technologies and Chandra's personal LinkedIn down below in the show notes. No matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode, you can click right on through. You don't have to worry about remembering anything or spelling anything. Click right on through from the show notes. Otherwise, Shandra, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Brian.